Today I'm going to show you how to score your sourdough bread. I've got 12 different designs for you. You're really in for a treat. Hi, I'm Sune and I'm a food geek. If you're new to this channel, I make videos about baking sourdough bread and delicious foods from all over the world. I'm on a quest to get the most out of every ingredient, and my goal is to teach you how to do that in simple and understandable steps. So join me by subscribing and ringing the bell icon so you won't miss any future videos. So why do we score our bread? Well, if you watched my video on oven spring, you'll know why. 1. When you develop the gluten well and shape the dough will be encased in a tight gluten network. That will help the dough stay together during baking, but when you score the bread, you'll create a weak point that will help the bread expand, giving you oven spring. 2. The oven spring that you get will allow the crumb to have a more airy texture, giving those coveted large holes. 3. Aesthetics. It'll give your bread that beautiful and professional look. When it comes to tools, you really need a baker's alarm equipped with a very sharp razor blade. That's the only way to get these results. I've left links in the description for cheap, inexpensive plastic lamps, which are just as good as the beautiful lamp you see me using in this video. I've baked 12 sourdough loaves, 6 Boules, which are the round ones, and 6 Bâtards, which are the cigar-shaped ones. All of them are scored with a different pattern and then baked so you can see how it turns out. Alright, let's do this. I'm going to show you how to perform 12 different scores of varying difficulty. I'll start out with the 6 Boules, and afterwards I'll show you the 6 Bâtards. If you're interested in a specific score, there's timestamps in the description. These scores are by no means an exhaustive list of all possible scores, but the ones in this video I think are both interesting and beautiful. As you'll see later on, it's really important to have the dough on something that can turn. Some people use a cake turntable, others lazy Susan. What I do is I plop the dough onto my nice little black iron peel, which is easy to turn. You may be able to just maneuver the dough around on a piece of parchment, but be aware that it should be easy to turn the dough, or else your scoring can get very awkward. Also, if you make a score and it isn't perfect, you can always go over it again and cut what's missing or not deep enough. In the companion article on my site, I provide templates in PDF for a Boule and a Bâtard that you can print and practice on with a Sharpie. It's all about getting the muscle memory trained so that you can get confident about your scoring. The link for the article is in the description. At the end of the video, I'll give you some tips on how to handle the dough to help you get good scores, so stick around until the end. The first score I'm going to show you is the cross, which is probably the easiest one. Hold the lamb straight down and cut from the top to the bottom, then turn the dough 90 degrees and repeat. Let's have a look at that from another angle. Straight down from the top to the bottom, turn 90 degrees and repeat. After you score, you want to get your dough into the oven as quickly as possible, as you've now effectively punctured the gluten network and the dough will start to deflate fast. Let's have a look at it after it was baked. It opens up nicely, but no ear or anything. To get an ear, you have to score at an angle. More on that later. The second score for Boules is one of my favorites. It's called the Diamond Crosshatch. Start by scoring a number of parallel lines, then turn the dough about 30 degrees and then score more parallel lines. Let's look at that from another angle. Score parallel lines, turn the dough 30 degrees and then score more parallel lines. Let's have a look at that after it's baked. Isn't it pretty? If your bread has great oven spring, it really opens up in each score. The third score I'm going to show you is called a Windowpane, no relation to the gluten development test. Here I chose to decorate it with a cross inside the windowpane, but it also works without. Cut 2 parallel lines spaced out evenly, then turn the dough 90 degrees and repeat. Then add a cross. Let's do the other angle. Cut straight down, 2 parallel lines spaced out evenly, turn the dough 90 degrees and repeat. Decorate with a cross. Let's look at the baked loaf. This one is interesting because the pane actually gets lifted up a bit. It looks really cool, I think. The fourth score is called a leaf cut. When baked, the loaf will resemble a leaf. Cut 4 parallel lines on one side of the dough, turn the dough about 90 degrees and mirror the design on the other side. Let's look at that from the other angle. First 4 parallel lines on one side, turn and mirror the design on the other side. This one looks really beautiful, I think. Simple, yet elegant. The fifth score is called the spiral. It's not the easiest one to do, and here I should have probably gotten my cake turntable, as it would have made it a lot easier. Start in the middle. While turning the dough, move outwards towards the edge. As you can see, I'm just going over the score, making sure that there are no parts where the dough hasn't been cut properly. Let's look at the other angle for a different view. When it comes out of the oven, it looks really great though, I think. The sixth and final Boules score I'm going to show you is an artistic or frilly score. These can be done in countless ways. They often contain a wheat stalk, but it isn't a rule. I learned to do this from a video by Anna Gabor, which you can find on social media as Bread Journey. I have a special lamb for this called the wire monkey, but here I'm just going to use the straight one. I've seen people just hold the blade, but I'm just too clumsy for that. First, I use some butcher's twine to make some helper lines. Then I cut a wheat stalk along each helper line. Then I cut an outline around each wheat stalk. It's important that the entire center has been cut so that the bread can open there. Let's have a look at the whole thing from a different angle. Then we bake it, and here it comes straight out of the oven. Just have a look at that. Isn't it gorgeous? Then we're on to the Bâtards. The first score on a Bâtard is called a diagonal Saucisson. It means sausage in French, but I wasn't going to call it diagonal sausage. It's a really classic French bread cut. Cut a number of parallel lines about 45 degrees along the bread's long axis. This one is really easy. From the other angle, parallel lines all along the bread. After baking, it looks like this. It's a really classic looking bread, I think. The second score I'll show you is a score to get an ear. One that many people seem to struggle with, but it's really not that hard. Start at the top, hold the lamb at about a 30-degree angle and cut all the way to the bottom of the bread. As you can see, I expand the cut even further to make sure it can really open up. After it's baked, you can see that the bread really opened up and created the ear. The third score is called a French cut. This is probably my favorite score for Bâtards because it looks so beautiful after it's baked. Two long parallel cuts at a slight angle. Notice that where the second one starts is up higher where the first cut ends. Baked, it looks like this. Man, with mini ears and everything. I need a piece of bread soon. The fourth cut is called a leaf cut. It's a variation of the one I did on the Boules, but this one contains a center cut where the bread can expand. Start by cutting straight down the middle. Proceed to cut a number of parallel lines on one side, turn the bread slightly and mirror the design on the other side. From the other angle, it looks like this. And here is the baked loaf. Look how the center cut helped the bread really open up. You could do the center cut on the boule as well, but I think it's better suited for a Bâtard. The fifth score is called straight Saucisson, straight sausage. Yeah, no. Basically, just long cuts down the length of the bread. Try and be as precise as possible. I start with the center cut, then the middle right cut and the middle left cut. Then I fill in the open spaces with 2 more cuts on each side. This method helps me to get them spaced out evenly. Baked, it looks really gorgeous. It also seems classic to me, although I don't know of any classic bread that uses this score. The sixth and last Bâtard score is another artistic one. This one I came up with myself, although I'm sure that it's been done before. I start with a wavy line down the middle. Then I do a wheat stalk on one side. Then I turn the bread at 180 degrees and score another wheat stalk. After it's baked, this is what it looks like. The wavy score really helped the bread open up. As you can see, I got a little close with the wheat stalk on one side. When something doesn't turn out how you want it, it's not a failure, it's just a learning experience. Alright, those are all the scores. Let me talk a little bit about how to handle the dough. When you're about to score bread, you want your gluten to be very well developed. Make sure you do a Windowpane test before you get into the proofing part of your bulk. You also want your bulk to be of the correct length. When the bulk is over, the dough should be light and bubbly and have risen visibly. This is not about a specific amount of time. You also want to make sure that you shape your dough well so that you have a tight gluten network on the outside of the dough. Lastly, you should retard the dough in a banneton, or at least something that helps keep the dough in its final shape. Remember to use a lot of rice flour. You want the scores to show up in a different color. All these things and many more are covered in my Get Amazing Oven Spring video. If you're unsure about how to do any of these things, this video will be a total eye-opener for you. Remember to subscribe and ring the bell, and I will see you next week for another video.